introduce yourself?
He's going to introduce you.
My name is Emmanuel.
Emmanuel,
Nice to
Donna.
meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I was actually looking at his name, Emmanuel Archimede.
Well, he's looking at the man who made the ships. His first name is Emmanuel.
Yeah, that's why I was like, oh.
Oh, you named
share a
it.
little bit. We're looking at making some pasta today.
I'm gonna make 2 different kinds of pasta.
Okay.
Get my good side.
I will. Well, don't worry, we got your good side right here.
I'm going to start with pasta. All right. You can use all-purpose flour. I'm using a different kind of flour. I'm using durum. 2 different kinds of durum I'm using. This is what I'm going to use to make the actual pasta. This durum is a real fine grind, as you can see.
And that's wheat, right?
And that's wheat, correct. And this is durum as well, but this is called semolina. You've probably all heard of that. And it's just a different grind, it's coarser. This is what they make pasta out of, semolina and water. You'll see I'm going to use that later, a little bit later. So, what I did was, you don't need a pasta machine to make pasta. You can use a rolling pin. Do it by hand, but I'm lazy, so I'm going to use a pasta machine. And I'm making a well. I'm making the well big enough to hold 2 eggs. And there's lots of different recipes. Some have eggs, some don't have eggs. All right? 2 eggs in there. And then this is where it gets messy. My hand washing station. I'm going to take the eggs and just break the yolks. And again, you can do this in a bowl. And if it runs off, that's okay. Normally I'll do this on my countertop, but I'm using a cutting board. So then I take my scraper and I'm just getting it started. Blending in the eggs. So those are the only 2 ingredients for this pasta. So once I get the eggs kind of blended in with the scraper, and you can add other ingredients too. If you want tomato pasta, you could mix a little tomato paste in with that egg, like a teaspoon or 2, or spinach, salt, and pepper, whatever you want. All right, so now comes the messy part. So I'm taking my hands and I'm just blending it. This takes a couple of minutes. You can see how messy it is. And once you do it, I mean, you can do this in like a KitchenAid or a food processor. The thing is that you need to feel the dough because you need to feel the consistency of it. So even if you do this in a food processor, KitchenAid mixer, any stand mixer, you're going to have to turn it on to a board to do the final. See how messy this is? It's pretty. All right, so I got my beginnings of my ball. That's when I'm done. And then I always have more flour nearby. Put a little flour in. It's more forgiving if you're doing it by hand with a rolling pin, but if you're using a pasta machine, it's got to be the right consistency so it doesn't stick in the machine. There's my ball of dough. Okay. Now I'm going to flip this over. And you can see if your dough's ready, it'll bounce back. You can wrap it in saran wrap if you want to make it later on, you know, do the final step later on, and just keep it in the refrigerator. And I don't see big pockets of flour or egg, yellow, so I know I'm good. Now I'm going to take my scraper and I'm going to cut it in 4 pieces. Usually I let it rest a little bit, but not now. All right. So then I'm going to take each piece, flatten it out. Some of this on my hand. Flatten it out. Then I'm going to take a little more of this durum flour. And I'm going to flour it again. This time, I'm going to make it like into a rectangle, as close as I can, and thin it out to 4 squares. Close to a rectangle as I can get. Dredge it in the flour. Okay. Anybody have any questions yet? No. Okay. So I'm going to use the table. Nobody's going to eat this pasta, so don't feel free. Because I just realized I should have brought something to lay it out on. My grandmother used to lay it out on her bed when she'd make the pasta. I always used to say, "Where's everybody sleeping?" And we got the macaroni on the bed. All right, so here comes the semolina. So that I'm going to put on the board. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the semolina. It'll give some traction when it goes through the machine. So this pasta machine has a roller in the front that will thin it out. You'll see that in a second. And then a couple of different cutting options. Fettuccine that's wide and flat. And then in the back is linguine that's also flat but thinner. So, lots of different ways to do this. Some people fold it. I'm just going to show you the way I do it. So I'm dredging in the flour, semolina, and then I'm going to start rolling it out. There's a dial on the side. It goes 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 6 is the widest, and then as you go down, it gets thinner. So I make sure it catches there, and then run it through. That was 6. And I dredge it in the semolina each time. That's 5. And I always drop it there and put my hand under here to catch it, because if it's going to stick, if my hand's up here, I won't know if it's rolling up on the bottom. That was number 4. 2, I can feel it getting thinner.
Donna, I know that in your initial, probably in your recipe there, but the initial amount of flour that you started with, was that just for demonstration or is it a specific amount that will yield a specific amount of?
So that
that you started?
recipe, I started with the recipe amount, which is 1 cup. And I did a pasta class this morning at the store. And it's amazing how much 1 cup and 2 eggs will give you. So I had 6 people and they were at tables this size. And by the time they were done with these 4 pieces, it covered the table. So fresh pasta, when you cook it, the volume is big. Probably this recipe, and this is number 2.
That's why I asked, because it seemed like you started out with a small amount, and it looks like you're yielding quite a bit.
Yeah, you yield a lot. I think I messed up and did 2 twice because I was talking. Probably. Like 3 to 4 people or an appetizer for my husband. And so you can use the same recipe for lasagna sheets. You cut them. Some people cook them first, or you can put them in raw as long as you have enough sauce on them. Ravioli. I wouldn't do it this thin if I was making ravioli. I would stop at probably number 2. And see? So that's 1 piece. I'll just do 1 more just to, or maybe I can quickly. Anybody else have questions while I'm doing this?
The pasta machines back in the day, were they built like this, or were they a
Back in
little bit
the
less
day-
friendly?
What do you think? I was back in the day?
No, not before your time. Before your time.
Nice.
You read it about it and nostalgia here.
You know, my grandmothers did it by hand. They would roll it and then cut it with a knife. But I have seen one, and they're similar. You know, this one is probably titanium. I'm sure the composition. Did your grandmother, did your mom have one?
All by hand.
All by hand.
All by
They
hand.
did it by hand.
And cut them like you said.
Yeah.
They let them dry, and they cut them.
Right.
How expensive is a machine like that?
So you can get them all over the places. All over the place. We sell. This one is right from Italy. I've seen them from $30 up to like $60. This one retails for $60. But they're pretty sturdy. You know, if you get the pasta stuck in that or the dough stuck in it, you can't put it in underwater or whatever. And trust me, a lot of times in classes, people will just jam them up. And I let them dry, and then I have a little tool to clean out the dry pasta from them. And then I just brush it to clean it up. And now we're going to number 1. And so you can serve that when you cook this pasta. You can. You can dry it out, and I'll show you how you do that. Or you can, make it just like I'm making it now and throw it right in the pot of water to cook it. Fresh pasta takes 2 to 3 minutes. box pasta, which takes, they're all different. Maybe see, now that's too thick, that shouldn't happen. On average of probably 8 minutes. And you can make it, freeze it, cook it from frozen. I'll stop there. So if you get a hole like this, you do this. Fold it back up. Go back to number 6. Start it all over again.
Is a number 1 setting like angel hair? Or is that smaller?
Yeah, real fine. So yeah, you just mend it, fold it over and mend it. I'm gonna take this one down to 2. All right. Good. So now we cut it. If you let it sit for a little bit, it will, like in the classes, I'll have them do 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. I'll have them all go down to number 2 and then lay it out because they've never done it before, and then it'll dry a little bit because as we're talking here and I'm demonstrating, the air is drying it out a little bit. And then it's easier to get a nice solid piece on number 1 if it's drying a little bit. So like the ravioli would be, this is a little thicker. And there's a million different ways to do ravioli. There's stamps, or you could fill and go over here. My grandmother had like a crimper, like a pastry crimper, just cut it. Their way to do it was a little more primitive looking, but it tasted fine. It tasted great. So then cut. So I'll show you that. You just take your crank, do the fettuccine. And then you catch it as well. It's going to come out this side. And once it catches, sometimes you need 2 people. And I go faster. And there it is. Now, if you're going to dry this, there's pasta drying racks where you would just hang it like this, and in 24 hours it's dry. And then you cook it dry just like box pasta. Or you could make Nests, N-E-S-T-S, put it in like that. What was I gonna say? If you don't have a pasta drying rack, you can just put a hanger with like a towel over it. But you want to get it to, so once it's halfway through here, then I can move my hand here and catch it. And you can hang it like that. Or you could put it on a towel on your table or counter just like that as well.
You don't have to dry it, you can just cook it fresh.
You don't have to dry it, no, you can just cook it fresh.
Alright guys, so we just saw how to make some pasta. I'm gonna go home, try this out myself. There's different things from Angel here. She also told us about the machine. It's only 30 to 60 bucks. Make it yourself. Put your little spice on it. Watch a couple of our other videos and see what kind of other spices you can add to it. Get different kinds of poultry that you can add to your own pasta. We'll be back out tomorrow to check out everything else going on. Check out some more music. Unfortunately, there's not going to be any dancing, but we'll get you the full-on experience of this 3-day festival of Italian Fest. Until next time, guys. I'll see you later.